Welcome to the deep dive. There's this huge buzz around short-term rentals right now. People often just say Airbnb,
Right.
and it's really changing things, how people travel, housing, everything. We're seeing it everywhere. Globally, protests in the US, Japan, new rules being debated in Belgium. It's a big deal.
It really is. A fascinating shift. Quite complex, too, in the whole real estate world.
Yeah.
And today we're doing a deep dive specifically into furnished short-term rentals in Morocco.
Okay.
We want to, pull back the curtain on all of it. The admin stuff, the taxes, which can be tricky, the regulations, how it's hitting the local market.
And the big question, right, is it still a smart investment for you? We want to break
Yeah.
it down, make it clear.
Exactly, without the usual confusion.
So let's start there. To really get a handle on this, what exactly is a furnished short-term rental according to Moroccan law? What are we talking about here?
Okay, so basically it's giving someone a furnished place to live for a short time. People just passing through short stays. And in Morocco specifically, it's covered by Law 8014. Think of it like the short stay rule. It's for stays from 1 night up to 30 nights maximum.
30 nights, okay. And after that?
After 30 nights, you're in a different zone. That's Law 6712, which is the standard long-term lease law in Morocco.
Yeah.
Completely different rules, different protections for tenants.
Got it. And it's not just apartments, is it? You mentioned a few surprising types of properties?
Oh, yeah. It's way broader than you might think. The law covers a lot. You've got traditional bivouacs, like furnished tents.
Really? Tents?
Yeah. And single rooms in someone's house. Obviously, apartments, entire houses, villas, even fixed camping cars set up for guests.
Wow, okay. So quite a range.
Definitely more varied than just your standard city studio.
Now, the story of how this really took off in Morocco is fascinating. Our sources talk about a big shift around 2019. Before then, it was mostly, the tourist spots. Marrakech.
Right, the classic areas.
But then, almost suddenly, these rentals started popping up in residential neighborhoods in cities that aren't typically tourist hubs, like Agdal in Rabat.
Exactly. Places you wouldn't have expected it before.
So what happened? What sparked that boom?
Well, it's, kind of a perfect storm. A really big factor was this deep mistrust Moroccan owners had with the legal system for long-term rentals.
Mistrust. How so?
Imagine you rent out your apartment long-term, and the tenant stops paying. Getting them evicted could take years. Literally years.
Years. Wow.
Yeah, your property, maybe your family's main asset, just locked up in legal battles. It felt incredibly risky. So owners saw their places as potential liabilities, not assets.
So rather than risk that headache, they just left them empty.
Many did, yeah. Which, of course, isn't great for housing supply. But then alongside that, some owners got smart. They started furnishing their places specifically for, diplomats and expats.
Ah, okay. A different type of tenant.
Exactly. People seen as more reliable, often preferring furnished places anyway, and willing to pay more, much more.
Like how much more?
Well, an example we saw was an apartment going for maybe 7,000 dirhams unfurnished.
Okay, about $700 or euros.
Right. Furnished for an expat, suddenly it could fetch 12,000 dirhams. So maybe $1,200 or euros. That's a huge jump in income. Plus, it felt safer than dealing with potential long-term issues.
Makes sense. And then COVID hit. The world changed overnight. How did that play into it?
Oh, COVID was a massive, unexpected catalyst. Borders closed. Right?
Yeah.
So all those furnished apartments relying on expats, suddenly empty. Owners needed income, fast.
Right.
But at the same time, Moroccans who traveled maybe to Spain or elsewhere had used Airbnb. They got used to that model.
Ah, the traveler's habit, as our sources called it.
Exactly. They brought that expectation back home. So domestic demand for similar short-term stays surged, just as international travel stopped. They filled that gap.
So what started as maybe a way to cope during the pandemic turned into something bigger.
It absolutely did. It went from a temporary fix to a genuinely viable economic model. We saw this example. An apartment netting maybe 11,000 MAD long-term
Okay.
could suddenly bring in 20,000 MAD in a single month through short-term rentals.
Wow, that's nearly double.
Yeah, like an 80% increase in potential monthly income. When you see numbers like that, it's not just a side hustle anymore. It's a real business opportunity, a game changer for many people.
Okay, so the financial appeal is undeniable. Now, people often just say Airbnb, but that's like saying Kleenex for tissues, right? It's broader than that.
That's a really important point. Yes, Airbnb is the big name, the one everyone knows.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not the only one. You've got major global players like Booking.com.
Use them loads for hotels.
Right, and they're big in rentals too.
Yeah.
Airbitel, which is part of the Expedia group known as Vrbo in some places. Plus, there are local Moroccan platforms popping up too, so lots of options.
For someone owning just one place, maybe it seems okay to manage, but I imagine if you have 2, 3, it gets intense fast. What's the day-to-day actually like?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's relentless. Short-term hosting means constant turnovers. So constant cleaning, changing sheets, towels.
Laundry mountain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there are the small things. The AC remote needs batteries, the gas bottle for the stove runs out, the Wi-Fi glitches. You're basically on call.
Sounds like it.
I've heard stories, owners getting calls at 2 a.m. because a guest locked themselves out or can't figure out the TV. It's not passive income. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
If you have more than one, it can totally drain you. It's like running a small hotel, but often without the staff.
Okay, so that naturally leads to professional help. What are the options there? How do property managers fit in?
Right, that's where the pros come in. Real estate agents, specialized property managers, they act as that buffer, that interface between the owner and the guests.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, there are two main ways it works.
Okay.
First is percentage-based. The agent handles everything: bookings, communication, cleaning coordination, minor issues, and they take a cut of the nightly rate, usually around 10 to 15%.
And the owner's role then?
The owner still covers the big stuff: major repairs, property taxes, insurance, that sort of thing. But the day-to-day is handled.
And the second model?
The second one is a fixed rent model. Here, an agent or maybe an entrepreneur basically rents the property from the owner for a set amount each month.
Ah, so they sublease it short term.
Exactly. The agent takes on all the running costs, manages everything, deals with any damages, and keeps whatever profit they make above the fixed rent they pay the owner.
That sounds like much less hassle for the owner. Predictable income.
It is. It offers a lot more peace of mind, frees you completely from the operational side. You just collect the rent.
It's interesting how platforms like Airbnb have also adapted. Tell me about their co-host system. How does that work for owners?
Yeah, Airbnb's co-host system is pretty smart, actually. It gives owners fantastic transparency. Even if someone else, a co-host, is managing the listing day to day.
Right.
You, the owner, still have full access. You can see the booking calendar, who's coming, when, what guests are saying in reviews.
Oh, that's good. Builds trust.
It really does. That visibility is key for owners who want professional help but still want to keep an eye on their asset.
And speaking of reviews, guest comments must be absolutely critical in this business.
They're everything. Seriously.
Yeah.
Guest ratings and comments pretty much determine your success.
How so?
Well, good reviews, guests saying the place was clean, the host was helpful, maybe they assisted with airport pickup.
Yeah.
That directly boosts your listing's visibility on the platform. Higher ranking and search results means more bookings. It's a direct link. Good reputation equals more money. And it works both ways. Hosts rate guests too. Were they tidy, respectful, serious, as they say?
Interesting. And in checkout, I remember that being a pain point sometimes. Has that gotten smoother?
Definitely. It used to be a big hurdle, coordinating arrival times. Now, flexibility is huge. Yeah. Owners who allow late check-ins, for example, get really positive feedback.
And technology helps too, I guess.
Massively. Lots of places now use keypads with digital codes or smart lock boxes or electronic key cards. Guests can let themselves in whenever they arrive without ever needing to meet the owner or manager.
Seamless.
Yeah, it makes the whole process much smoother, adds to that feeling of independence that many travelers want.
Okay, this all sounds quite appealing, especially the money side. But here's a bombshell from our sources. Apparently, the vast majority of hosts might be operating illegally. What's going on there?
This is, a really serious point. And honestly, pretty shocking when you dig into it. The figure we saw was over 90%.
90%?
Over 90% of individuals in Morocco using platforms like Airbnb as hosts. The actual property owners have no idea they're operating outside the law, both legally and fiscally. It's a huge blind spot.
So it's not just about having a spare room. It's the act of regularly renting it out short term on these platforms that changes things legally. It makes you a professional.
Precisely. The moment it becomes a regular, commercially driven thing, not just a one-off favor for a friend, the law sees you differently. You're effectively running a business, like a tiny hotel.
And that triggers a whole different set of rules.
A completely different set. Tax obligations, regulations, things most casual hosts haven't even thought about. They're just totally unprepared.
So what are the risks if you don't comply? Are tax audits a real threat? What happens?
They absolutely are a threat, and the consequences can be really severe. Ignoring this isn't just a slap on the wrist. If you haven't declared your income, tax authorities can go back 10 years in an audit.
10 years? Wow, usually it's less, right?
Right. For declared income, it's typically 4 years. But undeclared, 10 years. And here's the kicker. They often consider all that undeclared rental income as pure profit. They might not allow you to deduct expenses.
Ouch. So 10 years of back taxes plus penalties on the full amount.
Potentially, yes. It's a massive financial risk that could completely wipe out any profit you thought you made. It could destroy the whole venture.
Okay, that's the tax side. What about other admin hurdles? You said it's regulated like a hotel. What does that involve? Licenses.
Very much like a hotel, yes. The tourism authorities oversee it. You're legally required to get an operating license. It's temporary, usually for 5 years. And you get it from the Wilaya or the Prefecture de Police, basically the regional or city authorities.
And that's mandatory, not optional.
Absolutely mandatory. It's fundamental. Without it, you're already operating illegally from day one.
And insurance, especially with things like earthquakes in Morocco recently, that must be vital.
Critical. Absolutely
Yeah.
critical. You need civil liability insurance, fire insurance, theft insurance. It's mandatory. Think about if something happens, an accident, a fire, that earthquake you mentioned. If a guest gets hurt on your property and you're not properly insured, the personal and financial liability is enormous.
Makes sense. What about keeping track of guests? Do hosts need to log who stays, like hotels do with check-in forms?
Yes, they do. It's another obligation.
Hmm.
Hosts have to maintain detailed visitor records, bulletins they call them, for 1 year.
What details?
Names, ID information, where they're from, who they're traveling with, dates of stay, all of it. And these records have to be sent to the local authorities.
And if you don't?
Big trouble. Fines can be hefty. Paid 50,000 to 100,000 dirhams.
Which is roughly?
5,000 to 10,000 US dollars or euros. Serious money. And potentially even prison time, up to 6 months. They're talking about maybe creating an online system for this, tele-declaration, but right now, it's paperwork.
That's a lot of admin. Okay, what about the rental agreement itself? Is just using the Airbnb booking confirmation enough? Or do you need more?
That's another really common mistake. People think the platform contract covers everything. It doesn't. National law always comes first.
Can you give an example?
Sure. In France, for instance, unmarried couples can stay together, no problem. But in Morocco, legally, for a tourist accommodation like this, an act of marriage is technically required for a couple to share a room. The platform won't check that, but Moroccan law applies.
Okay, so the platform facilitates, but local law dictates. And I assume you need a proper written contract too.
You absolutely do. The law requires a written contract. It needs to specify the duration, the price, what's being rented, the object, and its purpose, destination. Without that formal contract, if there's a dispute, you have very little legal standing as a host.
Wow. Okay, beyond the legal and tax minefield, are there other, maybe hidden dangers for owners?
No.
Security risks?
Yes, definitely. There are real security concerns. Your property could potentially be used for things you'd never imagine: criminal activity, drug trafficking, prostitution, even terrorism planning. Or maybe less sinister, but still problematic, like unauthorized parties or film shoots.
Or someone subletting it without telling you?
That too. That's a big risk. And while insurance might cover physical damage, having clear legal options to deal with these kinds of serious misuse, it's often murky. Owners can find themselves quite exposed.
And privacy, what about security cameras? Can you put them inside or outside?
Inside, absolutely not. Big privacy violation for guests, strictly prohibited. Outside, maybe. You might be able to install exterior cameras, but you'd likely need approval from the co-ownership association if it's an apartment building. And critically, they must not intrude on anyone's privacy or intimacy. It's a very fine line.
Okay, we've covered the owner's perspective, the risks, the management, but this whole trend, it's bigger than just individual apartments, isn't it? It's having wider effects on the economy, on society.
Oh, definitely. It's sending ripples everywhere. On the plus side, it has genuinely created a whole new little economy around itself.
How so?
Think about it. Interior designers getting work to make places look great for photos. Cleaning services booming. Handymen, plumbers, electricians getting more calls for maintenance and repairs.
Right, because owners want good reviews.
Exactly. Owners are motivated to keep their places looking good and functioning well, which means spending money, which stimulates these other businesses. It's definitely created jobs and economic activity.
That's the positive side. But there's always another side, isn't there? Our sources talked a lot about gentrification, a major negative impact.
Yes, and this raises really important questions about well, the social cost.
Yeah.
There's no doubt short-term rentals are pushing up property prices, both to buy and to rent.
How is that playing out?
Well, think about a decent-sized apartment, say 3 bedrooms, in a neighborhood like Agdal, a place that a local family could have rented long-term.
Okay.
Now, an investor might buy it, maybe divide it, rent it out room by room on Airbnb. The owner makes more money that way. But that family apartment is gone from the long-term market. It makes it much, much harder for local young people, for families, to find affordable places to live in their own city.
So it's literally changing who can afford to live in certain areas, pushing locals out?
Precisely. It's changing the whole character, the physiognomy of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And developers, they see this. They're now building properties designed for short-term rentals from the start. They're marketed and sold almost like financial products, investment vehicles, rather than just homes.
Wow. That's a fundamental shift in how cities are developing.
It really is. A profound shift. And, yeah, often unsettling for long-term residents.
And how are the traditional hotels reacting to all this? They must be feeling the pressure.
Oh, they are. You hear a lot from hoteliers. They complain, quite loudly sometimes, about the competition.
What's their main argument?
They point to their high operating costs, staff, regulations, taxes, safety standards, and say they can't compete fairly with hosts who might be operating under the radar, undeclared, without the same overheads. It's a major source of friction in the tourism industry. They feel the playing field isn't level.
There was a quote in our sources that really stuck with me. The misfortune of some makes the happiness of others, and vice versa. How does that capture this whole situation?
It sums up the complexity perfectly, I think. It highlights those hidden trade-offs. Take a little cafe owner. They might love the influx of tourists staying in nearby Airbnbs, more customers, more business. That's their happiness.
Right.
But the family living next door to that Airbnb, they might be dealing with more noise, strangers coming and going, maybe parking issues. That's their misfortune. It's rarely a win-win for everyone involved. It depends entirely on where you stand.
But from the tourist's perspective, there's an argument that these rentals offer something hotels can't, right? That authentic, local feel.
That's definitely a strong point and a huge reason why guests use them. Renting an apartment lets you feel, even for a short time, like you're living like a local, not just visiting. You might shop at the corner store, interact with neighbors.
Immerse yourself more.
Exactly. It can foster connections and offer a kind of cultural immersion that's harder to get in a standard hotel.
Yeah.
For many travelers, that's a really valuable part of the experience.
Okay, so we've explored the boom, the management, the serious risks, the wider impacts. After all that, the big question for many listeners, especially potential investors, is it still worth it in Morocco? Is it still more profitable than just renting long-term?
The short answer? Yes. It generally still is more profitable, significantly so, in many cases.
Even with all the costs and potential hassles.
Even with higher running costs, management fees if you use them, yeah. A traditional long-term rental might give you, maybe a 4 or 5% net return annually. Short-term rentals, even after expenses, can potentially hit 25–30% based on gross revenue. The potential upside is still much higher.
So the numbers still stack up, financially speaking.
They do. It remains a very compelling proposition, purely from a return on investment perspective.
If someone is thinking of investing today, what's the smart strategy? What kind of property should they look for?
Well, the advice we're seeing now is maybe to target smaller units. Studios, 1-bedrooms, maybe around 40 square meters.
Way smaller.
Because, as we mentioned, developers are building specifically for this market now. They're creating buildings that are almost like apartment hotels. Lots of smaller, efficient units designed purely for short stays. Investing in that type of purpose-built property might be the way to go now.
And managing it. Should you try and do it yourself or just hire an agent from the start?
That really, really depends on your personal situation. Your time, your location, your tolerance for hassle.
Makes sense.
If you have the time, you enjoy the interaction, you live nearby, sure, you can absolutely manage it yourself. Use Airbnb, Booking, other platforms. Maybe you get some software to sync the calendar so you don't get double booked. It's doable.
But if you're busy or live far away,
then professional help is probably the way to go. If you're a busy professional, if you live abroad, like many Moroccans living overseas, the MREs.
Right, the Moroccan residents abroad.
Exactly. Or if you have multiple properties. Trying to juggle all that yourself is tough. Engaging a good real estate agent makes a lot of sense.
And the options, again, were percentage or fixed rent.
Right. Pay them that 10–15% cut of the nightly rate, and they handle the operations. That saves you a ton of time and leverages their expertise. Or, for maximum peace of mind, find an agency that will rent it from you for a fixed monthly income. No more worries about occupancy rates or guest issues, just guaranteed rent.
One thing that seems like a clear advantage is the flexibility this model offers the owner.
Oh, it's huge. That's a really unique benefit. You own the place, right? So if you visit Morocco, you can block out the calendar and use your own apartment.
Nice perk.
Definitely. And if market conditions change or you get a great offer for a long-term tenant, you can usually switch pretty easily. It's not locked in forever. And if you decide to sell, a furnished property with a proven rental income history can often fetch a premium. So you have options.
So summing it all up, what's the crucial takeaway for our listeners considering this, whether they're MREs or living locally? What's the final piece of advice?
Honestly, it comes down to professionalism and doing your homework. For anyone involved, success and, maybe more importantly, security in this game, really, the cost of getting that professional advice up front is tiny compared to the potential cost of messing up the fines, the back taxes, the legal battles. It's just not worth the risk. Invest a little in getting it right from the start. That's the smartest move.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. We've definitely peeled back the layers on furnished short-term rentals in Morocco. It's clear there's huge financial potential, and it offers something unique for travelers.
Absolutely.
But it's also wrapped up in some serious complexities, admin, tax, legal, and it's having these profound ripple effects on housing and communities that often fly under the radar.
Indeed. It's a dynamic space, constantly evolving with big implications.
So as we finish up, here's something for you to think about. We see the clear financial upsides for owners and the appeal of cultural immersion for visitors. But how do we, as a society, balance those benefits against the very real challenges faced by local residents squeezed out of the housing market? What can be done to make sure the happiness of some, as that quote put it, doesn't end up causing permanent misfortune for others, fundamentally changing our cities and communities in ways we might regret?